In 1992, as a network news cameraman filming the LA riots, I came to wonder how we as a society had come to such a level of hatred. I decided to look back to a period of time, the 1960s, when people wanted human rights, when people thought they could change anything. And I wondered what happened to those people? What happened to that movement? And my questions became this documentary, All Power to the People.
Fact is that there are more slums that Negroes are living in the United States of America today than there were 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Fact is that the Negro is more hovered up in ghettos today, more segregated in housing today than 20 years ago. The fact is that schools, particularly in the North, are more segregated today than they were in 1954 when the Supreme Court rendered its decision outlawing segregation. These are the hard facts. I'm not trying to solve these problems. We've got to rise up. We've got to organize. We've got to mobilize. And we've got to work to solve these problems.
Well, it was a very controlled exercise. We were told what time to come into town, where we could march, where we could not march, the kinds of signs that we could carry. The speakers were told what to say. When you say the March on Washington, you get the perception that people are coming there angry or they're going to do something. It was a picnic. The final thing was we heard Dr. King's I Have a Dream. So everybody was emotionally clapping and so on. I felt quite sad as I looked at the people because it was an empty dream to me.
America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. The idea whose time has come today.
I had responsibility for protecting his life on the march from Selma to Montgomery, and I spent 5 or 6 absolutely sleepless nights down there. I'd drive back and forth from Selma to Montgomery, and I'd look at every tree and around every corner and wonder, and up on the roof and wherever. any sniper could be, because I could feel the hatred drawn toward that place that wanted to kill him. And we had identified about 1,200 people who had histories of personal racial violence. I mean, they had tried to kill, they had assaulted, or they had murdered people on account of race, as far as I know, all whites, killing blacks. And here they were coming. They were drawn like a magnet towards Selma to Montgomery. And the man walked in the valley of the shadow of death for years, and he feared no evil.
There were a lot of lynchings and things that were going on that you never heard about because the news never left the South.
And the federal government had taken a larger position of standing by and observing what was going on. The FBI was not doing anything to protect the rights of the people who were peacefully demonstrating.
When you say power structure, I know you mean the white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago, only now they use modern methods of doing so.
Blacks being beaten with baseball bats and the fire hoses, and the dogs being sicked on blacks, marchers and protesters and people who were trying to vote. It was a very bitter pill to accept.
If you only ask for crumbs, and the granting of those crumbs causes bloodshed, what do you think will be caused when you ask for a loaf of bread or a bakery in which to bake your own bread?
Well, let me continue with...
Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
There had been a very intense struggle around the question of denying black people the right to vote and access to public accommodations. And the South had been the focus of much of that struggle because that's where the contradictions were most blatant.
As long as the masses of black people are involved in the struggle for freedom, not integration, but freedom, and respect as human beings, respect as men, and show that they're willing to die to be respected as men, then the power structure sits up and takes notice.
Dr. King's a man of unparalleled nonviolence among public figures in American history. And he studied nonviolence, and he studied Gandhi, and he studied Tolstoy, he studied Thoreau, and he absorbed their vision, and he came to understand that it was the only way that we'll avoid destroying ourselves. He could look at Hiroshima, and he could look at our massive arms expenditures and how it starved people and blew their bodies apart and all the misery of it. He could look at soaring crime rates, and he knew we couldn't go on like this, and he pleaded with us.
Hoover felt that one way maybe to silence Martin Luther King would be to invite him to his office.
J. Edgar Hoover said that Martin Luther King was a liar, and Martin Luther King had accused him of being racist in his selection of FBI agents. So Martin Luther King said, I will go to Washington and I will have it out with him. I will certainly make him take that back and apologize to me. And he did come to see J. Edgar Hoover. And they went down the hall and walked in an office together to talk. Finally, I inquired, and they said Martin Luther King had gone out of the door on the other side and had left.
Something influenced Martin Luther King, because I understand that at the end of the conference he told the press that I think something to the effect that Hoover was a great man.
J. Edgar Hoover, who was believed to have had a number of tapes of Martin Luther King experiences with women, and that Martin Luther King was horrified, and that Hoover had accomplished his aim of shutting up Martin Luther King for the time being.